Mouse Sports turn to ban.
And the day keeps rolling on. Series number 3 of the day, LGD Gaming taking on Mouse Sports. Yet another East versus West matchup. And tell you the truth, in East versus West, we've been having some mixed results, some ups, some downs on both sides. But LGD, speaking of ups and downs, that's kind of where they sit right now. They're 4-4 in the standings, right on that bubble, trying like hell to find a way to fight their way into the upper bracket coming out of the group stage. Mouse Sports, well, it's not really up and down. They're just kind of down. They're 1-7 as of me speaking right now. And yeah, it's been a tough go for them. They came in, of course, through the Western qualifiers, and it's been quite the Cinderella story for them. And that's all. I love making that pun. You know, Cinderella joining and really being that missing piece that allowed them to just find that groove and find that rhythm that they lacked so long, or that they had lacked for so long, especially after the departure of Kuroki. But yeah, I mean, there comes a point where, as great a story as it has been, and Mouz has had great results other than that as well. I mean, they went to the D2L finals. As a good example, D2L Season 3 finals in Valencia. So, but Mouz is still up against the world's best teams, and so far their performance on LAN has left a little to be desired. Left a lot to be desired, actually, what I'm trying to say. And even though their chances at having any real shot at an upper bracket berth have long since come and gone, you better bet they're playing for pride and playing to play the spoiler kids, at least for LGD here today. I'm your host, Aaron A.C. Chambers, joined by Draskell for the broadcast. And yeah, man, this is actually a really interesting match to me. Mouse Sports is one of those teams that when they get on in a hurry, and they get on in a big, big way. If Black's able to find his rhythm, if they're able to allow Koikva to have some space, and Feta, in my opinion, one of the most underrated mid players on the entire planet in terms of what he actually gives to the team, not just in terms of playmaking out of that mid position, but in other ways that I'll elaborate on later on after having talked to Cinderin quite a bit in Valencia at the D2L finals. Mouz has talent at every position. It just seems like some days they can't put it all together, and obviously with a 1-7 record, they've struggled to put it together in Seattle.
Well, for Mouz, like you said, they're pretty much already out of contention for even getting in the upper bracket, but you don't want to just come into it thinking of it that way. You want to come into it thinking of it in the sense that you can still beat any of these teams, because at the end of the day, if you can't beat LGD, even though you are technically 1-7, you can't win TI. Like, that's just how it works. You have to beat everyone. So Mouz coming into this with the Lifestealer first pick, I do love that quite a bit, because Black obviously being a fantastic Lifestealer player, and banning the DK Alchemist, which all the Chinese teams, I would say up until this point, have been prioritizing those two heroes especially highly. The Alchemist, I think, maybe even a little bit more than the DK. But I think LGD have to be coming into this pretty heavily favorited, considering the performances of Mouz so far. Even though LGD themselves haven't had a spectacular performance, I still feel as though that they are probably the ones who are going to have the edge.
Well, coming right out, we see a Gyrocopter coming out as a first pick in response to the Lifestealer. And, you know, we've talked a bit about that yesterday. We saw Gyro once or twice, but Gyro, for the most part, has really just fallen off in popularity across the board. I mean, there are still teams that do enjoy picking him very early and very often, but even those teams have started to get away from him a little bit more. But now seeing him paired up with the Naga Siren, don't know where that Naga Siren is going to wind up, if that's going to be a mid-Naga. Mouz going to spend their second pick on Puck, without a doubt, Feta's favorite hero and his best hero. And, you know, just coming back to this while we go through the second ban stage, what I was going to say is, talking to Cinderin, you know, when Cinderin joined the team, Cinderin does handle all of the drafting and all of the pre-game theory crafting. But I think most people assume that Cinderin is doing a lot of the shot calling in game as well. It's actually Feta that completely runs this team. He 100% is in charge at the helm. I mean, Cinderin obviously has input, as does everyone on the team. But in the end, Feta just makes a call, and if they don't agree, it doesn't matter. They trust him to do that. And more to the point, Cinderin actually told me point blank that Feta, of all the players Cinderin has played with, of all the players he's experienced and had a chance to play on the same team with and communicate in a competitive environment, he told me point blank that Feta has the best game sense and game mind of anyone he has ever played with, and it's why he's so happy to be a part of Mouz and to trust Feta to make those calls and to overrule him. So Feta has really, again, stepped up. There was a long time when he was just considered, well, you know, he's a mid player now. He wasn't always in that position. But on Puck in particular, he really is a phenomenal playmaker, and teams have learned. Many teams will just flat out ban the puck in the first two if they have a respect ban to spend because they just don't want to deal with it.
LGD's turn.
Yeah,
to
Fada's
ban.
puck is phenomenal, and they're going to need it to be up to snuff against LGD's lineup so far. When you're playing against heroes like Naga Siren, the best thing you could possibly do is get a hero to force the fights. That's another thing that we were talking about in one of the previous best of twos. When a team needs an
10
initiator,
seconds
there are
remaining.
two types of initiators. There are initiators who can get somebody out of the fight
5
like a Bat
seconds
Rider.
remaining.
You can get a quick pick, or you can get an initiator that forces the fight guaranteed. Like you get a 2 or a 3-man
time.
coil, you get a silence, and then the other team has to commit or they're just going to flat out lose and potentially even lose towers. So I do like the puck pick in general. I think it's a hero that I think I would like to see more in general. Most people don't pick him that much anymore. It seems like people are starting to kind of look over him, or they put him in the off lane,
Right.
or they don't put him mid, which I feel is kind of a waste of the hero's potential. But regardless, Mouz, not only is it a great initiator, but they also have something really cool for the lifestealer to get inside of to make sure that you can actually get in range and get the infest damage off and stick to a target. Because against a Naga Siren already, lifestealer is not going to be having a great time, and
Right.
Snare goes through rage, so you're going to be kind of stuck sitting there. But we still don't really know what the game plan for LGD is. Mouse Sports, you can at very least say that there's going to be a mid puck, so that's one thing that you've kind of already dealt with. But since Mouse Sports have banned out the OD, they know that they're probably going to have a solid mid performance. But LGD, they're going to pick up a Visage.
And I really like the way that LGD's lineup is kind of going right now. They have 3 heroes right up front that can do a lot of things really well. Like, what makes Gyrocopter so good is his skill set gives him some versatility. He can fit well into a pure team fight, sort of a, let's get out and fight early, just because his magic damage output is quite high, quite effective very early on. He can also, without a doubt, I mean, you made this comment
10
yesterday, and I'm
seconds
inclined to
remaining.
agree. When you talk about all things being equals and full inventories on all
seconds
sides, it's
remaining.
tough to argue against Gyrocopter as being one of the top, if not the top, carry in the late
Reserve
game just
time.
because of the power of Flak Cannon. Then you have Naga Siren. A hero is very versatile, can be played as a support, can be played as a mid, can even be played as a farming carry. Obviously, don't think that'll be the case. Hell, even the Gyro could go mid if they really wanted to try something like that. Naga also does a really nice job of transitioning into semi-carry role, giving you a little extra damage to put you over the edge. But what I really like about the Naga Siren pickup in response to the initial Lifestealer pickup, and I don't know that this is exactly why, but this is certainly an
LGD's turn
offshoot
to pick.
of why the Naga would be picked, is, when you see a Lifestealer, usually you're gonna have a team that tries to put together a Nakes Bomb sort of a
Mouse
situation.
Sports
They're gonna
turn
want to
to
fight
pick.
early on. Naga Siren's ultimate being the ultimate reset button, especially in the face of a Puck. Puck wants to get on you, wants to coil you, wants to silence you, and then take a fight off of that, allow his team to clean you up while he just tries to stay alive. Naga Siren, unless she's caught with the initial waning rift following the coil, is going to be able to bail her team out every single time.
LGD's
Yeah, that's why I was
turn
putting so
to
much
ban.
emphasis on the puck pick, because his initiation is going to be very key to the success of Mouse Sports. But they're kind of falling back into a playstyle now after picking up the Lone Druid where they can do a split push, they can do a slow siege, they can put the bear on the tower,
10
and make
seconds
LGD come to
remaining.
them. That's one thing that you can do to kind of circumvent the whole Naga
5
Siren song being
seconds
annoying thing,
remaining.
because if you're getting pushed down by a Lone Druid and you don't have anything to really kill the bear, and they do, I mean,
Reserve
they have
time.
the Gyrocopter, they can net it, they can use the Rocket Barrage, and of course, Visage with a Soul Assumption. They can even roar it if they want to. I mean, heck, the thing's
10
worth 300
seconds
gold.
remaining.
Right.
It's worth sometimes more than a hero kill, so it's going to be a lot
5
to
seconds remaining.
try to stop the Lone Druid from getting farm, obviously. Don't get
Mouse
pushed in.
Sports
But if they
turn
ever
to
find an
ban.
opportunity to jump because they're doing a slow siege, then Mouse have the perfect hero to do that. I do feel as though LGD, though, these drafts are probably about as even as we've seen today. I think most games I usually give a pretty big advantage to somebody just based on their picks, but I
10
think this one is
seconds
pretty darn
remaining.
close.
Yeah, it's the thing that's a big question to me. I mean, the Beastmaster pick
5
kind of
seconds
indicates to me that
remaining.
LGD is picking a lineup that isn't just going to want to play a grinded out kind of a game. I mean, obviously it's not
time.
super push oriented, but you can't argue that they can push. Whenever you have Beastmasters already contribute to mirror image, gyrocopters, flat cannon, and ability to zone heroes off of their own
LGD's turn
tower,
to pick.
just with the power of abilities like call down and like flat cannon. Visage, of course, with his familiars, it is really easy to underestimate just how well they do help you push and how much range he has on some of his initiation abilities, some of his damage dealing abilities. That kind of range, that kind of reach, especially if they're able to do something like get a Beastmaster with a Blink Dagger up, Naga Siren with the Naga Sleep to be able to initiate if you really feel confident in your positioning.
seconds
I feel like in
remaining.
terms of a 5-on-5 team fight kind of an oriented lineup, LGD's
5
definitely
seconds
heading in that
remaining.
direction. And I think that's how they're going to try to beat Mouse Sports. Mouse Sports with the Lone Druid Lifestealer combination. There's a Razor pickup as well. Razor, an
Mouse Sports
unbelievably
turn to
good
pick.
pickup. And I'll tell you what, so far as the lanes, they might, depending on what they anticipate here, they might try to isolate Razor against that Lone Druid because Razor actually just crushes a Lone Druid in a one-on-one.
Yeah, they will. It's going to be a support Naga, so it's going to be Gyrocopter, Naga Siren Visage, most likely either the Beastmaster mid or off lane, but Lone Druid doesn't go mid, so it's probably going to be the Razor versus Lone Druid matchup, as you
10
had said.
seconds
The question
remaining.
is Mouse going to go aggressive or not?
Right.
Because they have a Rubik and a Lifestealer.
5
Do they want to try
seconds
to go
remaining.
aggressive with maybe a Leshrac and add even a little bit more push potential and a secondary stun to
Reserve
help secure
time.
kills, or do they want to dodge, which honestly, LGD's tri-lane is pretty darn scary too. And Snare with Riptide and then Rocket Barrage into Soul Assumption, that hero that gets caught is dead to rights. There's not really a whole lot you're going to be able to do about it. So Mouse Sports, I think they're probably just going to go safe lane themselves.
Keeper
And it's
of
going to
the
be a Keeper of the Light. So there you go. Going to be a safe lane, tri-lane coming out from Mouse
turn
Sports.
to
I assume
pick.
LGD will probably do the same. In regards to lane advantage, obviously Puck's going to do great against a Beastmaster. The Beastmaster might be able to slightly outpush Fata, but in general, Fata's not really going to feel that much pressure from a melee hero.
And moving on into the game, again, the beginning of our third series here today, LGD. And this is really do or die time. This is probably the most important
Prepare
series
for
LGD
battle.
has played thus far, just because they are right on that cusp. You know, if they split the series 5-5, they'll still have a chance. If they were to drop the series 0-2, that would probably go. I'm not going to say it would 100% mathematically eliminate them, but it would probably put them in a position where they would have to win every single game from here on out, and that's never a position you really want to be in, and it's not really realistic to always assume that you're going to be able to do that. And Mouz, of course, a team that does come in the underdogs, make no mistake about it. But yeah, they are going to go ahead and run the offensive tri-lane as anticipated and make sure they isolate Razor against the Bear. And of course, the reason Razor just crushes the Bear, being able to static link to the Bear, makes it very difficult for the Lone Druid to hang and bang in lane, and the amount of damage that the Razor's able to
30
steal. And
seconds
you
to
pointed
battle.
this out yesterday, and it's easy to overlook, just how cheap mana-wise static link happens to be. I mean, it's unbelievably cheap. You can use it constantly over and over. You take away the Druid's ability to use the Bear to harass you, take away the Druid's ability to use the Bear to last hit, and beyond that, you're increasing your own ability to last hit and deny with the stolen damage. So definitely a favorable matchup here.
Yeah, and starting with the boots is really nice because it means you can actually run and
The
chase
battle
down the bear.
begins.
He's never really going to be able to pull it out of range because move speed's slower, obviously, until he gets his own. And he gets a haste rune, so that's going to be nice. When he spots the bear, he'll probably just follow it around for a bit, get some bonus damage to last at the first creep wave, and then he'll have a bit of an advantage there. But LGD are going aggressive here. I do like this because, well, actually it's weird because DD actually skilled the Riptide at level 1 and not Ensnare, which is a little strange. So maybe, no, Sylar's playing Gyro, so yeah, it definitely is a support Naga. Just typically you'll see Ensnare, especially when you have a Rocket Barrage to follow it up, because if that hero gets stuck and Sylar can get in range, then the damage output from getting a full Rocket Barrage is much better, I think, than a level 1 Ensnare.
This is one of those
Or, excuse me, a level 1 Riptide.
This is one of those situations that it has become a bit of a rarity. Many times, this kind of comes down to what you're talking about when you, lately, the last 24 hours or so, when we've looked at the draft, you'll just look and be like, well, this team's going to win this lane, this team's going to win this lane. These are three really interesting matchups happening in every lane. The only one I would say should be a crush is Xiao, of course, on the Razor. Should be able to really make life hard on Koikva. In mid, though, the Beastmaster versus the Puck. Feta, of course, a very, very talented Puck player, but the Beastmaster should be able to hang in and do fairly well here. He's not going to be completely run out as he might be against other heroes. And with the offensive tri-lane versus the offensive tri-lane, we're probably not going to see a lot of movement. So what we're going to have is two pure one-on-ones for the most part, while these two tri-lanes butt heads, and really the lethality on both sides is most definitely there. Just all comes down to positioning, and is certainly going to all come down to making sure, like you said, that the chain of initiation is right on both sides. One Illuminate, even at level 1, can completely change the outcome of an early fight in these lanes. So Synderen in particular, if he gets involved, he's trying to counter ward now, as we can see. When he does get involved, if he's able to land an Illuminate on some of these heroes, the Naga Siren in particular, squishy at
Dire's
587
top tower
HP,
is under
549
attack.
for the Gyro, could become trouble.
Yeah, those are the two targets they're going to have to go for. You can't go for DDC in this
Yep.
lane. He's the tankiest of the three. Not by much, but by a good enough amount to where you're going to want to think twice. But every time there's any aggression down here, what's likely to happen is you're going to trade kills. Somebody on each side is probably going to go down, somebody's going to get focused from LGD, and then somebody at Mouz is going to die too. So it just depends on if you're willing to make that sacrifice, who's actually getting the kills. If it's Black who gets the kill on your side and then one of the supports gets the kill, then technically it's still better for Mouz in that case, but it's way, way too close to call down here. It's just going to be down to, more than anything, positioning, because LGD has a lineup that their damage output is based on Sylar being in close proximity to the other hero. So if he's not in a perfect spot, then it's probably not going to be too good.
They managed to force the Rage out of Black, but the Illuminate is the trade away, continuing to force LGD to burn through their regen. We can see Yao just 100% comfortable to sit and deny creeps even from creep pulls, and he'll have static link back up in 5 seconds. But here in mid, Zhao 8, Beta continuing to go toe-to-toe. Really afraid to bounce the camera away from this bottom lane too terribly much. 17 CS for Puck up against the 16 of the Beastmaster. So yeah, as anticipated, he'll take a little abuse, but he should be just fine, and that's showing itself. Feta also doing quite a good job. And yeah, it's getting to the point now where Quakeva just really relying on creep skipping to get anything accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to have to sit against the Razor, and he's actually decided to go for a point into Unstable Current, which is a little bit weird. I don't really think he needs it yet. It does give him a little bit more bonus move speed, so maybe he just wanted it so he could keep up with the bear. 1 point is 4 move speed, so it's not huge, but it's a little something. I just really think the only action we're likely to see at all, pretty much in this bottom lane, even though right now Yao's having an epic battle with creeps.
Yeah, I know, I was watching that too. Playing hide and seek with him.
Yeah, he'll be fine for the moment, though. It's going to be down to the movement of the two mids, but I would also venture to say that Mouz has an advantage there, because Puck can probably get kills a bit easier than a roaming Beastmaster could. For instance, because the lane is always pushed in favor of LGD, Sylar's using Flat Cannon pretty frequently, then if he TPs to the tower, or even just walks down there around 7-ish minutes where the wards usually are going to be down.
Have some action on bottom. Sylar caught out the ensnare, helps to bail him out. Black right on his heels. Pos use the telekinesis, and they managed to eat through a lot of his health. He does have a wand, so he'll have those charges. He does have 3 tangos as well, but right there we just saw how bad that could have been. And now they're going to go for it again. The Illuminate will be on the mark. He forced to blow his wand charges, and he's going to have to make a run straight for the well. LGD being bullied out of this offensive tri-lane, at least for the moment. In fact, DD donating his salve, and actually not donating, it's a barter system we have here in Dota, giving him the tangos. But yeah, again on both sides, and LGD, as good as Mouz is looking right now, twice in a row almost killing Sylar. Same thing could happen to Black if he's not really careful.
Yeah, that wand actually totally saved him. He would have been dead 100% if he didn't have that.
Oh,
so.
yeah, a top. Oh, Koikba got some RNG love. Got there just in time to see it. The bear, just with 3 points into the bear, entangle. Locked him down, and apparently just playing a little too close to the bone. We saw him playing about as greedy as you could, ducking in and out of the woods and dragging creeps and everything else, and no surprise, he tried to do it again, and that time got caught with an entangle and pays the price. First blood goes the way of Mouz, and Koikba got donated one there. Now Black going to engage back on Sylar. The ensnare being used predominantly as a defensive spell, but now Puck drops the coil. Sylar trying to stay without breaking it, but they're going to end up giving one away. There's a roar, though, onto Feta. They end up trading 1 for 1 that time. Gyro for the Puck. So these lanes beginning to break down already. 2-1, Mouz maintains the lead.
Yeah, I was expecting that movement was going to come, though. And I mean, LGD knew it. It was obvious they're not going to go for top, especially when the Lone Druid's already winning the lane. But DDC could be in trouble here.
Pos going to lift him again. The Illuminate's on the mark. Synderin has been money in the bank. He's only missed 1 Illuminate that I've seen him throw. And if I'm not mistaken, there's only been 2 he's thrown that didn't catch at least 2, if not 3 targets. So doing his job. And level 3 now, very important. Having that Keeper of the Light to level 3 at a decent clip. Level 2 Chakra Magic means he can support his own mana pool plus that of one other. And this is a lane that I won't say it's totally lost quite yet, but yeah, they're actually going to go ahead and abandon it already. DDC bailing out, going to make his way up the top. Looks like DD's going to be following in his tracks as well.
Yeah, LGD is not really having a good time. They're even going to TP on the Naga, so they want to try to go in, potentially get a kill here. I want to mention the way that Quake's been playing this lane is pretty much the way you should play against a Razor if you're a lone druid. Rather than just letting the creeps clash, always pull, because your bear is going to be able to tank the creeps much more effectively than Yao will be able to, and he'll lose way more health than you. So eventually, you could just get lucky like that. And sure, it is a little bit of luck, but it's only because Quakeva set up the lane that way and got Yao solo in the first place that he was able to make that happen. So he played the lane pretty much perfect. I think most lone druid players out there are probably going to take a note from that book and probably do that if they're ever in this situation.
Yep.
Because again, ranged heroes do not do well under the tower against creeps.
3-1. And Mouz now has the run of the bottom lane. We see not just a small rotation, a mass rotation, as LGD is all sticking pretty close together. The Bear's going to spot out that there are some new tenants in the dire side jungle. Quakeva playing ultra passive, ultra safe, all the way back and looping all the way around, in fact. The Bear just kind of kicking it for the moment. We're actually going to see him yep, thought we were going to see a TP there. Instead, Quakeva now moving around to the Ancients. And going to go ahead and start to go to work here as he is level 8 and takes his true form. What started out as a very volatile set of lanes has now broken down into a very passive set of lanes.
Well, it's a quad lane top. I mean, that's pretty standard, right?
Yeah.
Just got 4 heroes kind of chilling up here, and Yao is going to be relocating himself as well. Are they really going to send him to the off lane, or is he just going to go mid while Xiao Wei tries to find a kill? I think it would make more sense to probably go mid at this point. And this is really bad, actually, for LGD, because unlike LGD support lineup, where they have a Visage and then they have a Naga Siren, there's a Keeper of the Light on the side of Mouz, so they're going to be able to use the map quite easily, and a Keeper of the Light alone, even though he's lane level 4, is going to be more than enough to counter-push this lane and top, and they don't have any way of initiating on this Keeper of the Light, because the Beastmaster certainly doesn't have Blink, and he's probably the one who's going to have to get a mech. So their initiator on the side of LGD is not going to be able to get an initiation item for quite a while. I really think that Mouz have not a huge lead, but a decent one.
Yeah, and Mouz is just in good position. You know, it's one of those things, this early on, it's actually very difficult without just taking 4 or 5 unanswered kills or taking 2 straight unanswered towers. It's tough to get a tangible lead. And you know, in the metric sense, but just in terms of where their lineup is positioned and how they're going to be able to set the pace of this game. With Yao certainly not having the start he wanted, his mechanism is not that far from completion though, so about 750 gold. Yeah, and this is an exact reaction to what we're talking about. LGD not liking the way this feels and certainly not wanting to maintain the status quo. They're going to smoke 3 and stand in the river for a moment, wait on the 10-minute rune. And after that, probably look to make something happen. At top, though, Mouz has the same idea. There's a coil. Sylar going to be silenced out as well. Trying to make a run for it. The Illuminate's there, and that's going to be a very, very nice kill for them to have netted. And that was just an unfortunate timing for LGD. Both of them wanted to smoke at the same time. LGD just got away from their carry, waiting on the 10-minute rune to spawn, and that was a naked gyro that was very, very quickly abused.
Yeah, I mean, what is he really going to do when he gets 4-man like that? Can't really live through that kind of gank. And I want to correct something really quickly that I said. I thought that the Beastmaster was going to get mech, but it's actually Yao. He is going for the mech instead. So Xiao Wei will be able to go for a Blink Dagger, because they absolutely need somebody who can just start the fight straight away. Smoking in this case is okay, but because the fact that Sylar just got caught, it actually stopped the smoke gank completely, so they weren't able to go in after the fact. But Fata himself, he's gonna be working his way towards Blink at some point, but mid.
That I was watching it. First hit rune. That happened. That happened because of a first hit rune. Tell you what, Quakeva, you need to pat your old bear on the back. It's yeah, we always joke about it. It's pro roots, dude. That's what professional. Those are the roots pro players get, and yeah, that's really just unfortunate for Yao, because he was turning around and running like it should have been fine. He should have taken one swipe, and the bear would have backed off. But nope, first hit root. Mouz was there. Sometimes you're gonna get a root, man. Sometimes you just gotta get a root.
If you're me, you never get a root, and that's why you don't play the hero. That's pretty much the philosophy that I've adopted when it comes to playing lone druid.
I get roots whenever I'm jungling. Whenever I'm jungling against creeps, that's when I root the creeps. That's when I get mine.
You and I think share very similar RNG in that sense. And they're even going to throw a net on the bear, but they can't really kill it yet. They need more damage. And I don't know, man. I think LGD are looking pretty out of sorts at the moment, and Sylar's going to be forced to TP. Oh.
Telekinesis. Poss brings him back. Sylar cleaned up for the second time in the last few minutes. And I don't, like LGD, this team, and we've cast them a number of times now. Every now and then they just get into this funk, and that's really the only word. I feel like they're not comfortable on the map. Mouz is just out-thinking them and out-moving them. And, you know, when I look at LGD, this is the definition, like a phrase I use is deliberate Dota. I don't feel like LGD's really functioning as if they're trying to accomplish anything. Like, Mouz is setting the pace so effectively that it's almost like LGD's just waiting for another punch to land, you know. And on all this time, by the way, Black, the one person you don't want to leave the free farm by himself forever, has been left the free farm by himself forever. Mr. GPM just cleaning up this bottom creep wave. And they're going to take a mid tower in the meantime. So, yeah, I mean, this is just all Mouz in this early game.
It's really bad for LGD too because they don't have any way of really doing anything.
Right.
Like, what do? They can smoke, which they are going to do right now inside of their jungle. They're going to make their way towards top lane and potentially look to maybe pick off Cinder and go for a tower. But the reality is, this is not an ideal place to want to push. You really want to go mid or you want to go bottom, because those are the two towers that actually mean something, and they're kind of hovering around here. They look like they want to try to go, but they can't see anything. They can only see Cinderin. So he is pretty much the only viable target. Going bottom is too much of a risk because it's a lifestealer and a puck, and they're going to get the offlane tower for free. LGD just backs up because they aren't feeling that confident. The only vision they have is around the top side of the river, where they can only see a support. So, I don't know, LGD just feel a bit out of sorts. I totally agree with you. They might just not be having the best game.
Yep, we saw this yesterday too. It's very hard to describe. It's just like that smoke's a good example. When you smoke, you usually you want to smoke, and then you want to decide where you're going and what you're doing and what the goal is before you smoke. That time it was almost like they just smoked, wandered around a bit trying to figure out where to go after the fact, and then they came up missing and just had wasted time on 3 heroes. And you know, this team is so good that seeing them do things like that just jumps out at you. But nonetheless, Mousesports, and you know, again, not trying to make this all about some perceived weaknesses in LGD. How about some perceived strengths in Mouz? Mouz playing a very good game of Dota right now. Quite the opposite. Very deliberate in what they're doing, very focused in what they're doing, and accomplishing goals all over the place.
An armlet on the lifestealer as well now too, so Black's just going to continue to get more and more tanky. There's going to come a point where they're going to be able to focus down the gyrocopter so easily, and his damage output is non-existent because really he doesn't have any items. He's got treads, and that's it. And Fata now has a blink, which means that there is a vessel for the lifestealer to get into to actually get in with Infest and start the fight. So LGD really not looking so hot at the moment. I would much rather have seen them try to sneak a Roshan with that smoke than I would have liked to see them go for a gank, because most of the vision priority is in top, because LGD want to protect their top lane just as much as Mouz want to try to take it. And you can see that is emphasized right now because Fata has actually just come up here, but they can see everything because they have a lane ward. So LGD know exactly what's going on. If you're going to lose this top tier tower, at least try to get something from it. They will smoke, and we'll see if they can actually make something happen here.
You want to point out that Fata does have his blink dagger. And at this point, I mean, like you said, what are they... It has to come down to Naga. Like, they're just going to have to Naga song in and hope that they can chain everything together with such good timing, or you know, Fata could just hang out by himself and get isolated. We will not be able to catch him. Rest of Mouz did pull back. But yeah, I mean, it's like, and that's the other thing that they can do at this point. They're so mobile in terms of, you know, just the way that they can play, especially Fata, that they don't have to take fights they don't want to. Koitfa's quite happy to just say, okay, that's fine, I'll just jungle Ancients for a while on my way to a Radiance, which is what it looks like he's rushing as he's banked up about 3,000 gold now.
I don't know what LGD are going to be able to do. They're just walking all over the map trying to find something, anything, but they just simply can't. If they had something like a medallion, I would say Roshan is pretty easy for them to take because they have the Visage. But the thing is, DDC has no money. Like, he doesn't have any money to even get his medallions. So at this stage, LGD are forced into kind of walking around the map and looking for openings that Mouz just aren't giving them. And Zhao 8's not even going for a blink because he doesn't have any income. He just buys an Ogre Club, so maybe he wants to go for the Aghanims instead. Maybe, I don't think he's going to go for a BKB. I think Aghanims is pretty much the only choice that he would be likely to make with that item. But it's kind of painful because LGD, typically, like you said, their movement, especially we saw them the other day, it looked much better, at least, than it did now.
Yeah.
And Fata's got an invis here. He's got black inside of him.
And that's going to be a dead Shao-8. Cleaned up, easy peasy. At the very least, he had spent his gold on that Ogre Club before he died. But, you know, this is the other thing, too. Like, Razor's a hero you draft and build this way with a mechanism because you want to take control of the game. You want to be moving around as 5 and finding things and you know, setting the pace and the tone. This Razor just feels totally useless right now because what's going to happen is Koikfa's just going to, despite it being a matchup that should have been a crush, Koikfa's going to wind up with a Radiance coming out in just a couple of minutes. They're going to start to slow push behind Illuminate and behind the Radiance Bird, and they're going to be forced to come out and walk into Mouz. At best, they're going to be able to use Song of the Siren, which is only effective so far as it goes when you have counter initiation like Mouz does with the puck. So if the puck stays far enough back, it's not going to matter. You know, the Song of the Siren's just not going to matter that much. So 7-1 right now, and, you know, just 8 kills in an 18-minute game. But, yeah, we've crossed 5-digit territory now in the gold. 10,000 gold advantage generated by Mouz Sports, and 10,000 experience just about. And, hell, Black's barely been involved. Like, I think he just loaded up into puck that time out of boredom.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, he's just kind of been sitting in the woods doing his own thing. And
Yeah.
for Black, though, he's in his happy place. This is the Farming Simulator 2013, actually, brought to you by the International 3. So, for Black, he's gonna... I don't know if he's gonna finish his drums or not, because when you're free farming, making an item like drums just doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless you plan on just continuing to push the pace. And Mouz have seemingly no problem sitting back and just doing their own thing and just farming. So he might just go for something like a heart. He might go for SNY. We'll have to see. And the next item I think is going to be indicative of the playstyle that Mouz are going to be adopting soon. Because the tier 1 mid, the tier 1 bottom are dead on the side of LGD. All they have to do really is win like one decent fight, and they can just go straight for Roche.
Yep.
And the reaction for LGD is going to be a bit slowed down. So I wouldn't be necessarily shocked to see them wait it out either, just because, like you were mentioning earlier, there is a relic on this bear now with the Midas. And good God, Koikfa is like ridiculously farmed for an offlaner.
Oh, yeah. Now, this is... I'm telling you, man, Koikfa's one of those guys that's like Bulldog. You don't even know where they find it. Like, you know, Bulldog obviously still the #1, but Koikfa just has that quality about him. You take your eyes off of him for 5 minutes and come back, and he somehow accrued 2 extra kills and somehow amassed about 6,000 gold. It just doesn't make any sense. But LGD will be going into the Roche pit. Mouz looks like they're going to be slow to react. This is a big win for LGD and a nice way for them to try to get back into things. Mouz kind of outthought a little bit there. And, yeah, the medallion that had finished on the Visage, certainly the biggest part of that, so at least they get something going.
The Roshan could have been done so much earlier, though. Like, that one time they smoked and they were trying to wrap around on top lane by walking through the river, they could have just went and killed Roshan. Even though Sylar ended up getting picked off, it would have been something that they would have gotten earlier to maybe try to take fights after the fact. But the longer you wait to do stuff like that, the more of an advantage that Mouz are able to get in the Aegis means less, because if you're farther behind in farm, then your team dies faster, even if you yourself aren't going to be able to get focused down that quickly. So, oh, bottom lane.
Bottom lane, Sylar again. Caught out, has the Aegis popped away, and popped away for free, mind you. Just take it away, no other goals accomplished because of the attention he received, and Mouz just looks like they're ready to run, man. It is like the Miami Heat, ready to run all the time. And they're going to go ahead and rotate down LGD, going to try to defend. Now, what we haven't seen so far is LGD really show us their team fight potential. Mouz just hasn't given them the opportunity. So this might be a chance for them to get things back together. A nice win for them, even though they lost the Aegis. Just getting a 3-for-1, that kind of a trade. Defending a tower would certainly be a big help. Koikfa there and ready to go as well. I didn't see, yep, I was going to say I didn't see if his Radiance was done. It most certainly is. They're going to push off of it. Now, this is so hard for them. DD's the one to watch. They have to have a good Song of the Siren if they want to make it work. That or just hope that Mouz, yep, there it is. They're going to catch 2 on each side. Caught up, they're going to focus Black and Pause. Here we go. The rage through it. Pause somehow still alive. Counter initiation is going to come out. The roar on Koikfa, however, the damage, the Radiance Burn showing itself right off the bat. BKB on the gyro, making a bit of a difference. They're going to end up sending them running. And speaking of sending, Synderen going to end up cleaned up. That was the 3-for-1 they needed. Just something like that, not going to turn the game around entirely. But that was Mouz's fault. They grouped up way too much. It's very difficult in this choke point not to do that. But that was the only option for engagement LGD had, and they made the most of it.
Yeah, that was so unbelievably needed for them that if they didn't win that fight, then I think the GGs might have been contemplated soon. But the thing that shows is just how much damage LGD actually have when they can focus on somebody. Because Soul Assumption, the Rocket Barrage, and the Call Down especially is just so much damage output that we even saw how fast the Lone Druid died as well.
Yep.
Like, that's a Lone Druid with True Form. He got destroyed.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he just died incredibly fast, and that was not even with the full link. The problem with that fight, though, was that at the beginning, the puck didn't have coil. Like, they took that fight, and they did not have the puck ulties, so the counter initiation wasn't as strong as it could have been.
LGD finding their pulse a little bit. Mouz finally set back a bit. Black does the opt to get the basher up and going to forego completing his drums. Very offensive item. Koikva continuing the jungle out. We see LGD actually all grouped up in their side of the jungle, anticipating that Mouz's movement might bring them in there. And now this is, this is where Mouz has to decide. Mouz has a very good late game team. They have the Gyro, they have the Druid, and excuse me, the Lifestealer and the Druid to deal with the Gyro. Those two heroes actually deal fairly well with the Gyro, as Entangled does go through Magic Immunity, and you have the Lifestealer who naturally will build bash-oriented items. Of course, starting with the Skull Basher and then transferring to the Abyssal. So if they want to do that, they can. Nope. I was going to say they can go now if they want. Siler going to be caught out. He BKBs. There's the roar to try to counter-initiate. Fata trying to get out. Oh, what a coil! Got everyone, but the damage output just too high. Fata just landed the coil of his life. They just couldn't follow it up. Mouz feeling as if that has to hurt. That has to give them pause.
Dire's bottom
Because they
tower
could
is under
not
attack.
have gotten better initiation coming out of Fata. But in the end, there's just way too much damage output. The positioning for Mouz a little sketchy to begin with as well. They're not abandoning the fight yet. They did a lot of damage. They were just unable to seal the deal, unable to close. And now they're going to make another run at it. Obviously, the coil on cooldown for another 45 seconds. And Fata keeping his nose out front for the moment. Looks like they do want to keep this up. They're not entirely backing quite yet. Here we go. I was on the boar. Never mind. Poor boar. But LGD certainly not about to abandon the ramparts. Illuminate helps melt down the creep wave. Here we go with the bear once again. Gonna let him start going to work. Demolish certainly showing his strength. There's an ensnare on the black. And they are going to go ahead and try to lasso him, or excuse me, try to static link him. Illuminate from an angle. Now Song of the Siren. They've got 3 grouped up. Call down onto Koikva. That's the target. They're going to try to blow him up. Blinding Light buys him some time. The mech not enough to help him survive, though. Now, oh, the roar on Pos and Fata. Pos going to try to TP away. Not going to matter. That was a bizarre... That was just a bizarre sequence for me from Mouz. You could tell they just weren't in position to try to crack LGD. That didn't work the first time with Coil. Then they went back to the well after they'd had time to mech and to heal up some. I mean, yeah. And then that happened. Like, that was just really bizarre to me.
Well, all I'm going to say is LGD are starting to play like the LGD that I was expecting.
Yeah.
Like, their coordination, their focus in the fights, they know exactly which target they want to go for straight away. And at the beginning of that fight, I actually thought it would go okay for Mouz, because when the link was used by Siler, or excuse me, by Yao, it immediately broke. Like, it only drained 28 damage, which is like the minimum. It got 1 tick off. So I was like, okay, fine. That means that Black can go back in. But what ended up happening is Fata put himself in a really bad position by blinking behind to get a silence so the rest of his team could actually run, and then he was forced to use his orb too. So as soon as that happened, he had no escapes left. The song came out, and the re-engage from LGD they just couldn't deal with, because again, they didn't have a coil. They didn't really have everything at their disposal, so LGD just really, really good at capitalizing on the mistakes that Mouz had been making. And honestly, Mouz can't afford to do that many more times.
Yeah.
I mean, the experience is already pretty darn close to even. They still have a pretty good chunk of a gold lead, but the more they do that, the harder it's going to be to actually push in.
Yep. If there is anything that they can, I think they still can feel comfortable in. They still have total map control. They have yet to lose a tower. And the idea of LGD, unless LGD, I mean, it's still so early in the game that respawn timers even make it hard to push the issue and take towers that are this full on health against a team like Mouz, who again with the reach of puck, with illuminate spam from the keeper of the light, it's just a very difficult team to push into, especially when you factor in the radiance burn on the bear, used in a defensive manner instead of an offensive manner. It just makes it tough. So LGD is gonna, in a sense, have to be relegated to shooting for a later game phase, or they can just try to basically push the limit to the point that they're looking for pure pick and push deep on the other side of the map. Doing that, if it goes wrong though, can backfire pretty quickly. 8-7, the kill score has been shored up, but as you said, the gold lead still resting very handily with Mouz. And you know, I'm not sure. How do you feel about it? Like when I look at Mouz's lineup, if I'm in Mouz's shoes, I think I'm okay going to the late game so long as I know I'm going with a lead.
Well, the gold lead is probably the more important one,
right,
at least for right now, because it just means that your Lone Druid and your Lifestealer are really far ahead, that, as you mentioned earlier in the game, are great against the Gyrocopter. The problem is if you don't focus Sylar down properly, then the counter initiation is going to come out. The first time that Mouz lost a team fight at top lane was because the Roar onto Black stopped the damage output long enough for Sylar to live. Even though technically Mouz's initiation was really good, the BKB and the Roar allowed him to live. And then they had to completely reset the fight and ended up losing it. And then the same thing happened again, but in a worse way.
Right.
The other time, they didn't even really get anything. So if the hero that has a lot of money is getting kited that badly, then you need more help with either the puck initiation to get a better initiation faster, or you need the Rubik to be in the fights or get an entangle.
Right. Sylar continuing to farm up, making his way towards a butterfly now, has picked up the Eagle Song. Will certainly help him with the couple of the issues we talked about so far as the matchup between a Lifestealer Lone Druid versus a Gyro. Being able to dodge half the attack certainly helps. Forces an MKB by on at least one, if not both. The Scepter is actually going to get complete on that Beastmaster, and I'm actually really surprised Zhao 8 was able to amass that much, sitting at 0, 1, and 7. His last hits are actually not horrendous, and his net worth isn't the highest in the world, but given where he was, as you said, when he first picked up the Ogre Club, he was just having such a hard time finding any amount of gold gain. Roche will be back up in 30 seconds. Likely to be a hot point of contention. Looking at Black, he's getting closer and closer to his Abyssal, however. Only needs about another 1,000 gold.
Yeah, once he gets that, it's going to be significantly easier for him to actually stick on a target, which is the big problem that I was mentioning before. Because it doesn't matter how high your damage output is if you can't hit anybody.
Yep.
So when he gets that, it's going to be really easy for them to take down Sylar. However, Sylar's actually getting pretty darn close to his Butterfly, which is going to make it so the Lone Druid Bear is not going to have as easy of a time getting those roots, and of course it also means that even if he does get rooted, the damage that he's going to be taking is going to be quite a bit less. And of course then he has Yao's mech to back him up, and I'm not sure if Razor's actually going for a Halberd or if he's actually going for SNY, but he does have a Sage picked up right now. I think I would probably prefer the Halberd, just because even if you're not going to reliably use it on Black, you can use it on the Bear, and that means that there's no chance of getting rooted. So I do like that actual item choice coming out from him. But still, I think this is anyone's game. I don't think it's actually that big of a lead for Mouz anymore, because LGD are starting to feel more confident, and they actually have a lot of tier 1s still to push, and as soon as those tier 1s die, a lot of the gold lead's going to be diminished very quickly.
Well, a lot of what I'm kind of like, just to follow that up, 10,000 gold lead in terms of total net worth, that's the equivalent of 2 big items or a handful of smaller items. Thing is, LGD has most of the key items they need. They certainly can stand to have something like a Blink Dagger on the Beastmaster, as you had said, but he's got a Scepter up. You see the Sange as well as the Mechanism up on Razor. Sylar with his BKB and with his Eagle Song making good progress, very 1,000 gold, if that, away from his Butterfly. And it's like, yes, there is that extra bit of gold on the side of Mousesports, but in terms of key items, like honestly, the one that worries me the most for LGD is Black, who should be finishing his, actually, is he getting something else? Yeah, he spent his gold on something. But, oh, he picked up a Demon Edge, actually. Yeah, he is getting an MKB, spotting the Eagle Song on the Gyrocopter, so he's actually not going to make the Abyssal. Like, that actually, like, the Abyssal was what worried me, because what they need to do is focus down the Gyro. If Sylar drops, the damage output that LGD has drops with it.
Yeah, I think the MKB is probably the right call here. It still puts the same pressure on Puck, though, and the supports, because Black needs help to be able to stay on somebody.
Right.
He's going to get roared pretty much every single time, especially considering the Halberd is now finally done on Yao, which means the bear is most likely going to be the target of that. They can use it on black, but the thing is, it's really hard to, because as soon as he rages, the effect's just going to disappear anyway, and the person's going to be dead by the time the rage wears off.
Right.
So the halberds, in that sense, really isn't that effective against him. So LGD, though, they are going to have a pretty good opportunity to, at the very least, take the next fight. Butterfly done on Sylar with an Aegis and BKB, so things are starting to kind of come together for both teams. I would honestly say that pushing into the base for Mouz right now, like if they can get the tier 2 mid and try to push up the ramp, that's going to be absolute hell for them. Like, I don't think that LGD is going to lose that fight in the base. I think Mouz actually need a bigger lead to be able to do that.
The bear definitely putting together a big lead. He's got a Hyperstone up on his furry buddy. And he's actually, he's basically got, he just finishes the Assault Cuirass, actually. Just needs to hook back up with his boy, who is currently farming with Radiance Burn. But LGD has certainly done a good job of stabilizing. And again, the gold lead continues to go up. But I'm with you. Hang on, they're going to spot the bear out. 300 gold, give it away for free. Nothing wrong with that. But I think we both have the same sense here. Is that Mouz is in the lead, but I just don't feel like they're in a lead that is going to be that. And hopefully, well, it's hard to believe. You get used to not having pauses ever whenever you're talking events like this. But we do have a slight pause, so please stick with us. But the sense that I just don't feel like Mouz is really in command. They might be in the lead. I don't feel like they're in command.
No, I totally agree. And it's because if you look at the map, typically when you have a team who has a legitimate lead, the positioning of the heroes is different. Now, Mouz are farming their side of the map. But when you have a lead and you're trying to force the issue, you typically want to stay on your opponent's side of the map to prevent them from having anywhere to go. You want to put them in the base, and you want to make them stay there. Or at the very least, stand behind a tower if they're trying to defend, because that way, they're not getting anything. And as long as that's the case, you're not really getting any farther ahead, but you're not losing any ground. And if you can slow siege the tower with a hero like Lone Druid, then you do actually still come out ahead. And they're not able to do that because the last couple of fights they've been losing, which is why these turnarounds are actually such a huge deal for LGD. It's not just winning the fight that matters, it's the fact that when you win that fight, you actually open up a lot more space, and as long as you can be efficient, which especially the Eastern teams are very good at doing, then you're still in the game.
Right. Well, something that I think is going to continue to be a factor, and we do see LGD is actually ready to finally come out of their shell a bit and try another smoke. The bear up to the north, they're bound spot. They just don't want to give themselves away because they're suspecting that Koikvo or somebody else is going to be in the vicinity. Bear hanging out now, probably will be recalled. But two things that we talked about as being a big deal, obviously, but is a big reason why I think Mouz knows they would struggle so much pushing with that bear. Not only the single target damage that they have, but being able to static link the bear and being able to ensnare the bear. Two factors, hold on, there's going to be a roar on the pause. Hitting a lot of damage, Mech's through it, he's alive for a little bit longer, another good coil, caught for Feta. Landing the silence, waiting on help. Will it get here in time? Here comes Koikva. Song of the Siren canceled. He canceled it. Now they're going to follow it up, and Koikva is on the warpath. Sylar there uses the call down, making him fight through it. Now the cat barks at the dog, and they're going to try to re-engage back into them. Sylar, though, caught and locked down, and Sylar going to lose the Aegis. DDC being chased out by Feta will be blinked upon, and that's going to be a triple kill. And Sylar down again. LGD tried to take a fight. Cinderin kept Paz alive, kept himself alive. Blinding Light, one of the most underrated and valuable spells in the entire game, showing itself there. They just could not drop the supports quick enough. And then Feta doing what he does, landing a big coil, a waiting rift that caught half the team, hell, 3 or 4 of the team, and now they're pushing the tier 3 because of it. 2 are still down, buyback from Gyro, that alone, compounded with the fact that they lost 4, including an Aegis, makes that a well worthwhile engagement. Now they're going to come back out, and Sylar going to be caught out and blown up. DD next on the list, and Xiaowei joins them. That's a double kill for Black, and he's not done. Trying to chase down Yao, who can only keep the Link alive for a little while. No more buyback for the Gyro, soon to be no more tier 3, and damn well no more mid racks as Yao makes it another, and they call the GG. And once again, Draskell, we witness a Western team struggling and sitting in the bottom of the standings, managing to notch a win against a heavily favored Eastern powerhouse. What a game, and a game that we both, up until that point, up until that last fight, felt like really could go LGD's way. But Mouz dealing with that extension that we saw out of LGD, and then capitalizing in a monstrously big way, blowing the game wide open, and giving themselves only their second win of the entire group stage. What a performance.
I really think Mouz, like the last two team fights, they played perfectly. Like, you couldn't have asked for anything better. The one thing that is important to keep in mind here is that LGD got a bit impatient. Like, they were looking for an opening. They wanted to try to crack the game open by getting some tier 1s, because up until that point, they still hadn't really killed any towers. So, I mean, they did kill some, but they didn't. The tier 1 was still standing for sure mid. But they went for it, and they fought in an open field, which is basically the worst-case scenario, because it's giving a lot of room for heroes like Puck to maneuver. And not only that, but you're going pretty heavily on a support that doesn't really matter that much. I mean, what is Paz really going to steal in these engagements that's going to make or break? And then the Naga Siren Song cancellation totally screwed DD and the rest of the team, because Black was actually caught in it. He just raged immediately after. And then, when they went mid, and they blinked back in for the re-engage after Sylar bought back, Zhao 8 roared Puck after he had already Hex, blinked in, and used every single spell, instead of the Lifestealer with the MKB and the Basher. So that mistake alone, I think, was enough to just end the game right then and there. But overall, very well played by Mouz. LGD, we'll see if they can tie it up 1-1. And I say tie it up 1-1 as if there's a third game, but everybody knows these are just 2-game series, so we'll see if they have it in the tank.
Just steal my phrase, man. They're going to turn the bagel into the breadstick. That's all you got to say. They don't have to have a game 3. That 35 minutes, 57 seconds, the official game time. 16-8. A very low kill count score, all things considered. It was a lot of downtime, but Mouz, as you said, getting it all together in those last couple of fights and running over LGD, coming down the stretch. Game 2 of this best of 2 going to be heading your way next, guys. LGD, they want to have any hope, has to have a win. This is going to be probably the most important game. I said before this was their most important series of the entire prelims. This next game, by far, their most important game. Going to try to put one in the win column. Mouz, though, again, playing for nothing but pride, as there is no way they can crawl out into the crawl from the doldrums into the winner's bracket. Doesn't matter. They want practice, and they want wins nonetheless. They're going to try to make it 2-0. We'll find out which team's up to the task coming up next. Stick with us. We'll be right back.